serious? People who have disappeared and started a new life. What's your story? Here's the story. Was with someone who was emotionally abusive toward me. I let them isolate me from friends and family. Moved across the country. Gave up a lot to be with her. Married her. But I realized that things would likely never improve. One day I packed everything I could into a suitcase. Told her it was over and that no. Threatening suicide again would not stop me this time. I walked to the train station. Got to the airport. Called the police to let them know they had a potentiality suicidal person that they ought to check on. And flew back home. I felt bad about it. But I'm an exponentially happier and healthier person for it. Throwaway. Had a super shitty childhood. Born in the 70s where it was really common and pretty much accepted that wives and kids would get beaten to keep them in line. Left home at 18 and put myself through school. Studied accounting and tax. Built a practice and went down to Playa del Carmen one year and fell in love with the place. The internet is widely available everywhere. Including Mexico. So now I work online and it's working out well. I left California for good last July when my family health insurance hit $1,300 a month. The peso is currently at 21. I am living a dream life on the beach in the Mayan Riviera for a pittance of what I was paying in the Bay Area. I also have reduced stress. Better sleep. Lost weight. I even stopped grinding my teeth at night. It's so beautiful here. I am never going back. Ever. I was a widely known escort. I had everything. I was rich. Went to parties. Did all types of drugs. Met the rich and famous of Hollywood. etc. I fell in love with a middle class man. I stopped escorting to start being in a real relationship with someone I was in love with. California legalized gay marriage and we got married. Soon after I changed my last name and left the state overnight. I had nothing to lose. Moved to a tiny town with a pop of 500. And tomorrow I go to school, a simple small town school teacher. I moved out after spending my entire life in my hometown. I was just getting sick of the locals and people that hate me, especially past mistakes. On the other hand, my ex was stalking me hard at a point that I lost all faith within my community and decided to move into another state far away. Deleted all my social networking accounts and got a new phone number. I only maintained contact with my longtime best friends. Last thing I heard. My ex is still looking for me. I told my family I was leaving and I'd write when I felt I should. No address, no number. I've written them twice a year for a few years just so they know I'm alive and happy. I hated my friends and hated where I was, so I left. I still haven't met anyone I care for, but I'm sure the day will come so long as I'm honest and kind. My parents divorced when I was little. My mother beat me cause she hated my dad and my dad manipulated me cause he hated my mother. At 19 I was kicked out of the house cause my dad didn't feel like taking care of me anymore. He knew my best friend's parents would take me in, so he dumped me on them. I lived with my best friend's parents for 2 years. I call them Mama and Papa. They are my real family. I moved out 7 months ago to live on my own. Mama and Papa know where I live. My bio parents do not. I don't want my bio parents to know it either. They have my phone number and that is it. Left an emotionally and mentally abusive relationship. Packed everything I could fit of mine and my 2 kids' things in 2 suitcases. Moved across the country without telling a lot of people. And met my amazing husband a few months later. I only speak to my ex now because I have for our son. He's still the same pose I left that can't keep a job and jumps from chick to make himself feel like a man. Only regret I have is that I haven't seen my mom and sister in 2 years. When I was 15 my mother dropped me off at homeless shelter. After that I lived with a friend until I was 18. In that time I realized 2 things. The life I was headed for was not the life I wanted. I needed to transition, and if I maintained contact with my extended family, who are lovely for the most part, I would be forced to maintain a relationship with my mother. One day, With those two ideas motivating me, I packed what few things I owned and took a Greyhound 300 miles north to a tiny little town called Moscow. It's a wonderful place. Really the only place in Idaho you'd ever want to visit. It only has a population of about 20,000 people, but everything is so close together you could live there your whole life without ever needing to drive. I kept contact with my father, divorced, brothers, and the friend, but everyone else in that town just never heard from me again. I haven't talked to my mother in 7 years now. I'm not even sure if she knows I transitioned. For the best really. I'm pretty happy out here in Seattle. The life I have now is more than I ever thought I deserved. I knew a kid in middle school that did this. Holy cow. I'd forgotten about him until now. He had a single mom and kind of a bully of an older brother. I wasn't particularly close to him, but he really didn't have a lot of friends. He was kind of a brick. After middle school his family moved to Midwest. He called my house like once a year. Usually from some other person's house. He acted like he was not calling long distance. He would shoot the sheet for like 20 minutes. One of the last times he did that he said he ran away from home at 17. He asked if I could send him some money. He gave me an address and I sent him like $40. I had just gotten like my third paycheck ever. This was before the internet was so big. I called him a few months later to check on him and his brother told me that he thinks he was dead of an overdose. I felt bad. Maybe my $40 contributed to that. Like 6 months later my little sister told me a friend called to say hi. I was dating a girl and never home. I think it was him. I've moved a few times and tried finding him on social media but never had luck. I have a few friends that had weird lives and just kinda disappeared. That's the reason I have social media. So I can be found. I know a guy who did this. He was in his 50s, no kids and a wife who was leaving him for another man. He just said duck it. Over a few months he got a bunch more credit cards and worked to get the highest limits he could. Then one day he maxed them all out buying gold and other things he could turn into cash. Turned the cash into Bitcoin and left for Thailand. I'm not sure exactly how he hides the money and doesn't get caught, but my guess is that even though it's a lot to me, it's not that much to the banks that they are going to Asia to get him. Probably takes a while too. Anyways, he just lives it up in Thailand instead of being poor and miserable in America for his golden years. My family and I have a decent relationship, but I left my hometown to get away from them. I guess because of that, I disappeared. My family and I have completely different values, and I can't live authentically or be my true self around them. They have their own issues, and I was always the mediator. They never paid attention to me because I keep my problems to myself. I couldn't take it anymore. I met a guy online halfway across the country. After meeting in person, we had a year-long LDR. I started planning my move away from my hometown without telling my family. When they found out, they flipped. It was horrible and tense. But I stood my ground and packed up to move with my partner. I'm a good 1,000 plus miles away now. Sometimes you've gotta do what you've gotta do. My life is a series of new lives. Started when my parents divorced and I got placed with my mom. Ran away. Lived with my grandfather. Moved in with my dad when the courts finally realized I wasn't going to stay with my mom. Move in with my dad. Tried running again. But so close to college I just went there, taking advantage of my dad's promise to pay if I ditched my mom. I went to college across the state from him. Finished college. Moving from house to house for a total of 8-9 dorms apps. In 5 years. Went to work in the hardest schools in Texas. After my health started to fail due to the stress, I ended up leaving everything and everyone to go to Korea. I kept up with my parents every once in a while. Came back home and realized how much home felt like a foreign country. Went back to Korea. Married with a kid now. It feels really odd not moving every year or trying something new. Growing up sucks at times. But the new life is good. My wife is closer to my family than I am. My kid is wonderful and I feel closer to him than I was to any of my family. As soon as I graduated high school, I packed everything I owned in my Honda Accord and a U-Haul trailer, including my motorcycle, and moved to Phoenix, Arizona to study lutherie, the construction of stringed instruments. The only people I told I was moving were my parents and direct family. Clean break from everyone else I knew. I used to associate with some pretty sketchy people that I did not want in my life anymore. I have bounced around quite a bit since then, and it's always exciting every time. I know of someone who told their job they were leaving to check into a psych hospital and left the state instead. Didn't tell anyone where they were going except their family. Never heard from any of their friends back home, so ended up giving up on all those relationships. Settled in an unnamed small town in a cheap apartment. Walked into a local business that had a help wanted ad on Craigslist and landed a job on the spot without references being checked. I don't think it was the best decision overall, but it was a good decision at the time. I guess I haven't disappeared, but I never reappeared, I suppose. I was living in a small town in a European country and decided to explore Asia for a while. I lived in China and Korea both for about 2 years or so. Then moved to Japan for 5 years. I told all of my friends it would be for 9 months. Almost 10 years later, I've deleted my Facebook and only speak to my parents and sister. I refuse to set a foot back in my hometown. It ruined my confidence and I hate the people there. I've left good friends there, but it was soul crushing to be there. I'm doing this if my wife ever leaves. 2 years ago I had an on-the-road job. Without getting into the details, large companies don't design or build their own factory automation. I worked for a company that did, and I was on the debug team that chased down the causes of faults, wrote code for new faults, found the loose wires, rewrote code that should work but didn't, etc. They would keep me at the customer site for months or years after startup to ensure all the intermittent kinks were ironed out. It was the most stressful, challenging, gratifying thing I've ever done. But I basically had an ultimatum to choose between that travel career and getting married. I think I made the right choice with marriage. I even make more than 2x the money I did debugging. But she's all that keeps me in one place. Moving all the time was part of what kept me motivated and excited about life. I've made no friends in our current city. I rarely contact my family. I like music festivals and used to love rock climbing. Is love to take some time to be a bum. I just know that she's the only thing that keeps me sane in this sedentary lifestyle. And sometimes I'm very tempted to sabotage my marriage just to justify running away. I'm about to pack up and leave. I've talked it over with friends and family and was strongly advised for me to do it. So I'm not necessarily disappearing. But I will have to start new. It's a stressful process since I've lived in the same county all my life and now I'm moving to a different state and it might be my new home where I have 0 friends. Not my story, but my dad's. One night he just up and left my mom, my 2 older brothers and myself, with no word for years. Turns out alcoholism drove him to leave when my mom asked him to straighten up. He started another family. Things went south. Either they left him, or he left them, I can't quite remember. He ended up getting a girlfriend and we actually tried to reconcile. He was with her for a bit. Then he left again. He went back to his second family. I'm glad to say he's not a part of my life. Too much shit for me. I went ghost for a short period of time from my mother. I was 17 years old. My mom was abusive, manipulative and all kinds of crazy. I could go on for days about how badly she treated my sisters, father and myself. One day after a particularly bad beating I got it in my mind to move out of the house, but I would have to do it at night. So I packed a lot of things that I deemed valuable and called a few friends to see if anyone could help. I took a chance and moved in with a man that I had literally just met a week or 2 prior. Loaded down and tired of my mother's crap, I left and went MIA for about 6 months. The reason I am no longer completely MIA is because she has my little brother that has Downs. I'm much happier in life now, and although there's some stuff I just can't get back, I've gained much more by being able to be myself and being able to breathe. I'm proud to say no one wakes me up at 5 AM beating me, because I was smart enough to have enough and pull myself out from under her grasp. Feel free to ask questions. After a decade in an abusive relationship, and the following year of being stalked by him, I finally found the courage to ask for help. I left with a duffel bag, whatever little money I was able to save, and went to live with my parents for a month or so until plans were finalized. Only my immediate family knows where I am. I'm now married, safe, and happy. Happier than I've ever been.